Good evening and welcome to the February Health and Education Committee meeting and committee. Welcome to all of you. Full attendance tonight as usual. I need a motion on the approval of the minutes, please.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Allen. A second?
Second.
Commissioner Soriano, thank you. All in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
And aye as well, and 100%, okay. Community care, and you have everything on your, well, we know one thing is not correct, but we're all right there. But community care report is on your iPad there, and Ms. Carol Cook is going to speak about 45 minutes on community care of Rutherford County, or until Director Odom gets here, one or the other, whichever comes first.
You're dreaming about.
Oh, okay.
45
Well,
minutes.
maybe a minute. Ms. Cook, how are things at community
We're doing
care?
fine. We're doing great. The new construction's coming along.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that.
It's coming along good.
Mayor, you may want to address something too. You're the chairman of the committee there, and I see though that our administrator's report money is in good shape. So
Census continues to be strong, and our survey went good from our state friends, and no major things out of compliance, so it's just running very, very nicely, and they're providing a wonderful service out there for about 125 to 30 of their residents.
okay. It's a pleasure in the committee to receive that kind of report just about every month. I mean, it really is a terrific service being offered out there. I need a motion to approve the report.
Motion to approve.
Ms. Cook, thank you. A second?
Second.
Commissioner Phillips, thank you. All in favor of, if there's no further discussion of approving the community care report, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, and there is none, of course. And special projects report tonight. Ms. Nolan is subbing as only she can do. Well, the health department report is actually next, but I'm sorry, Ms. Nolan, since you're seated here, go to it. We'll adjust the agenda.
Okay. At the end, this project, the report is dated February 20th. So as of February 20th, Stewart's Creek High School is 79.32% complete on construction. There is a $3.1 million unobligated. The Eagleville addition is 100% complete with $155,000 unobligated.
So with the Eagleville, are those just bills that haven't come in yet, or is that surplus?
In Eagleville, to answer your question, if you look on page 2, there, the difference between what is not obligated and not expended is the amount that's on POs.
Okay.
That it is obligated.
Got it.
So the numbers I gave you have not been obligated yet. There's no purchase order sitting out there. So was that about 110, yeah, 110,000. Yeah, 110,000.
Right.
That's on POs.
Okay.
Any other questions for Ms. Nolan on the special projects report?
Motion to approve the report.
Thank you, Commissioner Jordan. A second?
Second.
Mr. Allen, thank you. All in favor of approving Ms. Nolan's wonderful report, please signify by saying aye.
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 It was a wonderful eye.
Wonderful eye, happy eye. Okay. Ms. Garrett sends her regrets. She's unable to be with us tonight, and the general public needs to understand, too, that in many of these reports to our committee have already been online. As a matter of fact, they're probably already posted there for the general public in many cases. But we've had a week or so to look at just about everything. Ms. Garrett sent us the health department report, and she's not here for questions and sends her regrets. She'll be back next month. So I need a motion to approve the health department report.
A motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you,
Second.
Commissioner Turner, and Commissioner Soriano, a second. And any other discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And We have no school board amendments tonight. I understand that is correct, isn't it, Mr. Sandy?
Yes.
No amendments, but we do have considerable school business to take care of. Mr. Clardy and Mr. Sandy will come on up, and Director Odom on his way, or
As soon as.
he's at a work session. If you gentlemen would come on up, we appreciate it. Have a seat and welcome. While you're seated, we have, besides the usual distinguished guests in our audience, and we have some, and I'm including Mr. Broden in the distinguished guest column. Dr. Vogel from Smyrna Primary is with us, the principal there, and Mr. Will Shelton, longtime personal friend, as well as Pat Hale Huggins, Mr. Burt, all from Blackman Middle are with us tonight, and we're glad to have you folks with us. We have paperwork being passed around. If you'll check the correct edition of the agenda, we have two school board projects that they've requested, and we discussed them at some length at Central Magnet a month ago, and as a matter of fact, I think we've this 5-year building program, is this exactly the same as?
Yes.
Okay, all right. That was our focus the last time, was the building program for the next 3 or 4 years. Really 5-year building program and an outlook, and 2 immediate projects that the school board has requested. And the first one, I put them in order on the agenda in order of expense. That was the only reason, and so I guess we can go in that order. But at any rate, Mr. Sandy, I guess we'll turn it over to you, Mr. Clardy, one of you or both, for Smyrna primary questions and comments. And take it away, sir, and welcome.
Well, let me just first give you a little rundown of what we're looking at Smyrna Primary School. And the major spaces are the new library / media center, the cafeteria serving and dining expansion, a new entrance canopy, and 7 new classrooms. And Mr. Sandvig can go through the cost of that with you at this time.
And what we're projecting at this point is just over $2.5 million for that project. And ideally, we'd like to open it in August of 2014. I'm sure that Dr. Vogel will agree with that. But yeah, that is one of our older schools. Do you know what year that opened?
The school was built in 1963.
Okay,
so we are
I thought it was right about my era.
our 50th birthday this
Okay,
year.
yeah. So, yeah.
And to open in August 14, we should be in the design phase at this time. But we basically have a year of construction time, and we can build a elementary or middle school in a year, so the construction time is stretched out. So we do have time to get the funding in place, get the design done, get the construction done, and then be open by 2014.
And I did not bring any growth numbers with me.
Here's Mr. Owen.
Good. But we have been seeing growth in that area in Smyrna. So we're addressing Smyrna primary first.
Okay. Welcome, Director Odom. One, not correction, just addendum, and maybe Dr. Vogel might want to speak to this. I'm not certain, but you said classroom space, and that is obviously correct. Really, one of those classrooms we're looking for a computer room. Is that correct?
Computer lab.
Computer lab.
Yes, sir.
And you had to turn that space over to a regular classroom at one point.
We took a computer 3 years ago and turned it into a classroom for ELL, English Language Learners. And today that classroom is actually a kindergarten classroom.
Dr. Vogel, I didn't mean to be rude. You're welcome to come up and join us if you like. Director Odom, before we open it up for questions here, do you want to speak to the Smyrna Primary project and request?
Because we've given you kind of what we're looking at for 5 years. So the point I want you to understand, it gets difficult beyond 2 years for Rutherford County, you know that. But as we looked at Smyrna Primary over the years, especially the library, the cafeteria, really one of our desires is to create the same opportunities for students regardless of where you live in Rutherford County. That's difficult for us to do. We're beginning to work on that. So not only to increase capacity for them there, which is one of our goals, but to provide more of the same opportunities for the students. And we've got other schools we've got to look at the same way. But Smyrna Primary definitely needs the upgrade. And a number of you visited. That's good. So I'm not telling you something that you do not already know. I can't recall exactly the year that it was built in issue 50s,
1963.
1963, something like that, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Odom. I know we're going to have, I would assume, some questions for Ms. Nolan or perhaps the mayor or others here on this one project. So let's get started. Any committee member have a question for any of those people, or Dr. Vogel either?
Number of students?
At Smyrna Primary, I've got the 4th month enrollment. You may be able to tell me today, Dr. Vogel, what it is.
535 today.
Yeah, I thought you would know.
It's a K through 5?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay.
And we have one of the governor's preschool programs in addition to the K through 5.
There was a front page article in the paper a couple of weeks ago comparing John Coleman to Smyrna Primary, and I'm just wanting to ask that question: why Smyrna Primary and not John Coleman?
In fact, I spoke with Dr. Phillips today, your brother today, about that, and we looked at it. One of our issues there is the footprint of space. We're doing some assessments. Much of that school was probably built in the 1940s, part of the core.
Been there
Here
for a long
time. So the question comes, and there's certainly no decision, would welcome your input. How much do you go in and build there in addition, or do you need to look for another spot? I mean, that's literally where you are in that situation. Rutherford County's never had the luxury in a number of years now to do that, and we still may not now. But I think there's some crucial decisions that we have to make there. There's no question those students, and that's what I was talking about a while ago, that deserve that opportunity, need that opportunity. We're in the process now of moving them an additional portable to get that done. But we've got to make some really hard, tough decisions about there. Is there space? Can we add there? What about the envelope that was built in the 1940s? Cost of maintaining and longevity. That's where we are.
A lot of those school campuses down on that end of the county, call it the northern end of the county, whatever you want, are kind of sort of landlocked. You get into Laverne area as an example, they're kind of locked into a narrow space, and it's going to be a challenge.
It is.
Really a tremendous challenge. This end of the county, this south end of the county, is where the least amount of growth is, and there's plenty of room out there. You get to that end of the county and you run into situations like that, and I know that this school is in serious needs, but I just had to ask the question: are we looking?
Glad you did.
Are we looking at other things in the future? Because I don't see it on this plan, and that's the reason that I'm asking.
And I'll say to you that like I said, this is a 5-year plan. I can see 1 to 2 years out. I'll be very surprised if this plan looks like this, maybe even for year 3. Like we have there, we have a new elementary, a new middle, new high, many things we depend upon. Like, is Murfreesboro going to build? We have the constitutional requirement to provide the education. Is Murfreesboro going to step up, build the elementary school, you know, where do we stand in that? So sometimes we find ourselves having to wait until another entity or something happens, but we know on the end you're talking about, we are it. And so we will have to be the one to step up for that.
We had, before the article you're referring to in the paper, we had just had a discussion about 4 days earlier in Mr. Odom's office. And as a matter of fact, the assistant superintendent of instruction was dispatched out to see what the instructional needs were out there so we could come back, and he had just reported to us. And so we're constantly reevaluating things there in the office. We have to, because things change, and so we have been discussing it and looking at an option of putting a 2-story addition in there because of lack of ground. But also, as Mr. Odom says, we did some extensive structural repairs and aesthetic repairs 3 or 4 years ago. And if we do a lot of work to that school, then we have to really look and see if the other part of the school is going to have the longevity that something new would, or would it be better to relocate? So
It's, as I said, I know it's an issue, but the reason that I brought it up is because I don't see it on this plan, and I don't see a whole heck of a lot of difference between the school that we're talking about and John Coleman. So, and that's the reason that I'm asking that question. And I don't have any problems, okay?
No, I think it's a legitimate question. It's a legitimate question for us.
This front page article on the last month's News Journal raised a question that I asked about Eagleville High School, and it left the impression that we were challenging that. The last thing I told Mr. McClarty is, I'm fine with it, I'm 100% okay with it, let's go. And then we had all kinds of parents raising all kinds of questions about us trying to stop the project, and that wasn't what happened at that meeting at all. And that's not what's happening at this meeting at all, okay? I just want to make that really clear.
Could I make a statement? And the main point that I thought I made, and I thought I made it well at that meeting, was that even adding on to Eagleville and doing the auditorium in those areas, it would leave us flexible in the future so that the money wouldn't just be put into the school without any need. If it became a middle school, and I'm not suggesting that or whatever, it would be work. It would put them level with the other players in the county.
And that was exactly the answer that I said, we said as a committee.
Right.
I'm satisfied, we're satisfied, and that should have been the end of it, really, but undoubtedly it wasn't. There were a lot of parents that were challenging us or me, or building that, putting that project in jeopardy, and that wasn't what happened at all.
Well, Eagleville, of course, is 2 years away on this liquid, and will undoubtedly be tweaked 5-year plan. I don't think there's any question about it. But I think it would be a good idea to recognize that the purpose of a committee, of every committee, we have 7 of them, plus the commission itself, is to look at all possible options, which is exactly what the school board did before they got here. So, I mean, that's kind of what we do. And the fact that something is said, regardless of what it might be, we're just exploring options. And sometimes we explore things that maybe we just soon not explore, but we have to do that in the interest of the taxpayer. I think that's pretty basic government. But anyway, let's move on with Smyrna Primary, which is really the major topic here now. Are there other questions for anyone here from any committee member?
Mayor Burgess or Ms. Nolan, what type of funding situation are we looking at? That's always the elephant in the room. I mean, are we?
How much you want to talk about it?
Everything before we vote. I mean, are we talking about we're going to borrow money to do this? Or are we talking about a tax increase? Or are we talking about we've got enough but we're uncomfortable with what we have? I mean, anything to give us enough information to make a vote on.
Well,
Outside of just-
I mean, she can give you a full presentation on this, or she can give you the short version. Short version on $2.5 million, we're going to have to borrow the money, but we have the capacity, and our debt service fund will support that with our current amount of money we're putting into the debt service fund.
One positive I see is while the economy may still be kind of ramping back up, hopefully it'll continue, interest rates are at historic lows. And so we're going to borrow this money over 20 years probably, like we usually do. And we're going to lock in rates in the 2s, probably, maybe 3.
We just refunded $39 million of bonds at 2.15%.
Yeah, we can borrow money at 2.15. I'd rather personally go in and do it than wait till the economy is completely recovered and interest rates could be 4% or higher, and it would cost us so much more over the length of time. Besides, growth isn't going away. Growth's just getting started back. We grew over 1,000 students, I believe, this year, system-wide, and we're just ramping back up. We can't delay our building program, and that's my opinion.
So when you look at her whole presentation, which I guess she's got up there, you're going to see that these 2 refundings that you've done in the last less than 18 months has really made this possible.
Mm-hmm.
We've saved enough on our debt service requirements in the next 3 or 4 years that we've sort of gotten over the hump that we had to get over with Stewart's Creek High School.
Right.
Can you see, Will? Can you see? Oh, yeah.
Ms. Nolan, you're on.
I'm on, okay. I'll talk about this as much as y'all want to talk about, but just so that you see some of the stuff that I was working on. I hate to throw you down.
You can be near the microphone, is what I was thinking.
Oh, okay. Just so you know that where I start on all these, when we're trying to look at long-term, is placing these projects. Now, I will tell you that the difference between my scenario, what the school board had when they wanted it, I did move this elementary school out, only because I'm sure that the City of Murfreesboro is going to build that school.
For they said they might build 2.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, so just know that I pushed that out.
Might. Might.
Push that out. But you know that whenever we borrow for elementary schools, we have to borrow an amount for the City of Murfreesboro.
Mhm.
So for these schools to open in the fall, we'll need to borrow another $800,000 for these 2 schools. Okay. So this, as Mr. Clardy said, you can, when you say you want to open a school in the fall of 14, that's, we're talking about in the fall of 13 borrowing money, assuming that it takes a year. So this just come on down as when would we need the money? Okay, so for these school needs, and what is in yellow are the estimates of what we would have to borrow for City of Murfreesboro. Okay, so at this point, for those 2 schools, you need $10.7 million. That would take care of both. But that's cool. You know, you've got a few other county general projects that you might don't forget about, I guess is what I want to leave you with. And there are some things up here we've not even talked about. It's just things I hear. I put it on my schedule.
Sure.
Okay. So now I want to talk about a penny, because this is a big factor. What is the revenue growth? Now, this slide is comparing debt service, the current property tax levy that goes to debt service. And this represents the assessed value of the penny and how it has grown. So you see how 6,448, when you see these big jumps, those were reappraisals. So the penny is worth more. So I will tell you, in all these projections that I've done in the past, I've never projected a 0.6, a 0.9, or a 0.5 increase in assessments. But that's where, you know, for the last fiscal year, for the 11-12 fiscal year, we only generated a 0.6% increase in assessments. This year, we've budgeted a 0.9. Back in December, I was excited. In January, I didn't say anything because I'm hoping at the end of the end of February, it's going to take care of it. But at the end of January, our revenue on the current property tax was lower than what we had last year. But a couple factors, the public utilities bills went out late, so I'm thinking, well, maybe it's just some timing.
Mhm.
We'll know at our next meeting where we
For sure,
stand on that. So I just wanted you to see this. Okay, so then we're going to go back over to our fund balance. Let me come back over here, what this is showing. We did 2 savings at the mayor, 2 refundings. On one, we saved $3.7 million, almost $3.8 million. On the other refunding, we saved $1.5 million. So you can see that we structured the savings in these next 3 years, not the 12-13 fiscal year, but the next 3 years, trying to build some capacity in for whatever might come up.
Stuff.
Well, so either, stuff. Okay. Column 1 represents our debt service. It's real easy to me to project debt service on our expenses because it's fixed and we know what our debt service payments are going to be and when they hit. Other expenditures are just some, trustees commission, just some things that just happen, so that's an estimate. We have a $9.6 million note that comes due next fiscal year. This presentation assumes we're going to take that out with debt. If we were going to borrow in the fall, or if we can extend it to around January, then we'll take this note out at that time. So for purpose of discussions, I'm assuming we're going to take that out at 4.5. Okay. So this column, based on the current debt, takes our requirement, other expenditures, plus that note, taking into consideration our savings. So column J is what our expected expenditures are going to be. Revenue is the one I'll come back to, but let's assume these numbers are right. In these presentations, we are going into debt service. Fund balance $2.5 million this fiscal year. Projected $1.1 million next year, with $340 the following year. I'm going to have water, or I'm going to be coughing through this whole presentation. Okay. But then the other component to this is how much of this is debt service. That's revenues, expenses. This column J, how's our revenue expenses look? Thank you. All right. Y'all may have to talk amongst yourselves. Let me come back. Do I what? No, I don't have one.
But I want Coke.
Let me just go out and cough a while.
Yeah, get this.
And y'all talk about that next project.
While she's on the priority list, you've got the La Vernon High School ADA modifications for this year. And then the bleachers and restrooms and concessions for the August the 15th. I'm confused. I thought they were one and the same.
We are not in compliance with wheelchairs for Smyrna and Laverne bleachers. We had a complaint this year. There's no option there. So this has to be done basically in time to start this fall, football season. And so using some ending fund balance funds, we're going to go ahead and meet that ADA requirement. Now, it's not very many bleachers and all in there. It's basically a ramp platform with a few seats behind it, of metal, but it will meet the ADA requirements to let people in wheelchairs view the ball game or participate. I mean, we should have an option Commissioner Phillips there to do that, and right now.
That's already made it through the commission. All that's already put to
It
bed,
is.
basically.
It's a legitimate question.
I was assuming that there was kind of, I was remembering that they were kind of one and the same, that we want to accomplish all that at the same time.
The money was so great to do it,
Right.
that the other addition is, it could be a debate. This was not a debate.
Okay.
What we had to do.
Okay, and even though that those bleachers and restrooms were talked about being a safety type of issue, it still needs to be down below some of the levels, like in 15.
It's not an immediate thing that you have to do. It's certainly uncomfortable, but I think Commissioner Jordan brought the number of games you play, that sort of things that you do. But I mean, honestly, people at Smyrna Laverne do the same amenities we do the others, but it just wasn't priority as creating capacity for schools. That's actually it.
I'm just asking, the 125 versus the 445 on the bleachers, could it possibly be rolled into one and save that 125 if you moved the bleachers up?
You did the research.
Well, we actually, on the home side, for instance, we already have the bleachers there, so we're just building a metal ramp up to that and removing some seats. So there's no difference. We have to do that anyway. On the other side, we are building a ramp, wheelchair area to seating, and then seating behind that 3 or 4 rows for whoever with disabled person. But also it's designed in such a way that we can add behind that, and it will just take that amount off of the cost of those bleachers. So there may be a little bit in savings on mobilization or something like that, but that's about it.
So we're really not going to be spending that $145,000, $125,000 twice?
No, we won't be.
No, it adds additional seating when we do the others. I mean, it's a commercial seating that's really kind of from a vendor, so it's not that you're doing a major construction project to do that. So.
Thank you.
Ms. Nolan?
I'm glad to be back. Okay. This is, we talk about our fund balance. We're estimating, on a budget this year that will end with $30 million, that we will use the $2.5 million drawdown of the fund balance. For ease of discussion, we'd like to keep the fund balance at 65% of what our anticipated expense is going to be. So this is where your capacity starts to happen. Even though we're going into fund balance next year of 1.1, our fund balance will be projected at 28.9, but our policy would be 26.3. So we would say, okay, so we would have 2.6 million that we could possibly use to pay additional debt service. So colon across. In my schedule that I first I had some general capital projects in there that has not been approved, but I just threw it in there. I said, well, we need 21 million. My capacity is that number. If I could borrow, this represents if I borrowed $1 million at 3%, I would need $67,000 to pay $1 million going across. So where I need maybe 21.2 million, with this amount of money I could at 3% have capacity of 39 million or 37 or 36. But next year there's a little dip over here. There's a little change on my the way the schedule is. You can see it goes down and back, down and up right here. So I would say, ooh, I need to do something that next year, maybe I wouldn't want to borrow a whole 39 because I'm going to have a dip the next year. I might only do 32. That's what I'd look at. All that to say, at this point, for what the mayor said, is we probably could do 2 or 7. But what are the other projects that need to be funded too in the future?
Lisa, Have you already reflected in your the savings that we have gotten this go around on refunding?
That's what those first two columns,
Okay.
yes.
All right.
That's those two. So between those, that was what?
So 5.2.
5.3 million that we saved over the life again. Jeff reminded me, we get beat up a lot about how much money that we have in fund balance. And this is the fund that has the most fund balance in it. But this represents to the people who buy our bonds, who lend us money, that we say we have a policy in place, that we have balances that are strong, that if something will happen, we can pay the people who have lent us money. And this is looked at heavily by our rating agencies. That's a big component of why we get the ratings that we do. So the next time that we get beat up, just know this is the big, when we're talking about, we all understand here, each fund stands on its own, while most of the public just looks at Rutherford County as one big thing.
And without the ratings that we have, that 2.1%, we just would never have
Right, right.
been significantly higher.
And in an economic downturn, and I've seen several since I've been here at y'all, if we didn't have that kind of reserve, we would see massive swings in the property tax from year to year in order to service our debt service.
Right. So, anyway.
That fund balance, Lisa, you're talking about.
Right here.
Yeah, the requirement, I think you mentioned 26 a while ago. That's quote the surplus funds, rainy day funds that a certain member of the community brings up each and every month at the county commission meeting as funds that are unobligated.
Right.
And our contention is that that is 100% incorrect. Those funds are in essence mandatory to have to run the school system in certain situations.
Well, here's the thing. You can't use this fund balance to go fund the schools.
You can only do debt with debt service money.
Right.
We can guarantee the money that we have borrowed will be repaid.
That's what,
which is
that's definitely what we want to
critically
tell
important.
the people who lend this county money, is that, you know, we will pay our debt.
Commissioner Phillips is really saying this another way, that the money really is obligated. It's obligated for that guarantee.
The reason that I brought that up is because every month, almost every month, he's a real intelligent person, and he makes statements that there's all this money out there that we're wasting, and now's our opportunity to say that money's not wasting, and this is what it's used for.
Well, and two, it's that the money is never talked about again. You know, that we're not, that we're taking the money and we're buying CDs with it. You know, that's such a different apart than what we're talking about here. And even now we're talking about how much of that can we use.
Right.
We do in budget, during budget season, how much can we use of that accumulated surplus and still meet our policy, and still, you know, to not get us in such a situation. I mean, I can imagine spending all of this and going every year to the taxpayer, oh, we need a whole lot of money this time. We won't need as much next time.
That's the difference between that 28 and 26 that you're talking about.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. Now, here's the other assumption that I want to go back and talk about. That's going into next year, and so I'm saying next year we could, but what about the year after? Then we're going to have to go back and we're going to talk about revenue again. I told you before how the penny has, you know, in all my projections that I have done in the past and looking at this future, I would have had a 4%, a 3 or 4% gain. When you look back at the history, what we've had in projecting it for, but that's not what happened. So I just am going to talk to you folks in here. That assumes, you can see the 14-15 year that is a reappraisal year. And usually this growth factor in that 2014, I would have a, if we said the assessments are going to grow 15%, this also assumes that you would keep the same number of pennies in here in a reappraisal year.
That's not a given, though.
No, it's not. That's why I went back and did 3.
Yeah.
But I don't know what assessments will do in that
The
year.
other reason we think 3 is more reasonable is we can see right now the total assessed value, and it does not have any growth. So even with a reappraisal, we're not optimistic that it's going to be anywhere close to what it has been in previous years.
You know, the fear is assessments go down, and to generate the same amount of revenue in a reappraisal, your tax goes up.
Certified rate would be inverted, then go the
Right.
other direction.
Right. That's in 14, 15. So anyway, I just want to let you know that where I would have put, let's just for kicks, if you did, what would happen? No, that's not the right one. No, it's right there. You get all kinds of capacity at that point. You know, if you let it grow 15, you know.
You always show
That's a-
capacity down the line because it doesn't factor in the borrowing year to year.
That's what I
You
was
know.
trying to do here, is to do that.
As we look down this list, we realize there probably will be borrowing in the future.
Well, yeah. So, the end of my story, I have 2. This is, yes, we could probably do, we're going to have to borrow in 2014, the next fiscal year, to take care of that 9.6 million. We could couple it at the same time. But what else is out there? This is one fund, only one fund. This problem in the penny and the levy is affecting all the other funds. And I just remind you that, Jeff, how much of your fund balance are you projecting to use this year? 5.8, 5.6, 9? I can't remember.
Wait for
This fiscal
12,
year.
13.
12, 13.
Nearly
9.
9.25 million.
Yeah.
You said we're going to go to market sometime after the first year, 14. Can we do these 2 projects and fund them internally through inter-fund loans and stuff, and then
We would-
refund that, or are we going to go to bond twice?
Yeah, for this
We-
and then.
For this and that?
I would not recommend that us do it twice,
I
because
know,
there's no.
that's a
it's
bad
no
thing,
expense.
but can we?
That's one thing that we could do. That's the other nice thing
That's-
about having this balance, is we can borrow
So we
from this
can
fund.
borrow from the fund and pay
And
it
then
back
pay
when we go to
back.
market in January, February 14. That
Right.
would save us huge money.
Yeah.
Yeah, because every time we do it, we have to have another rating call and all those expenses. So I'm not sure when y'all need to have definite, we're gonna.
We would need to get moving.
You said we need to be designing it now.
Yeah, should be designing it now, but, the project's a little smaller than what we're used to, so we can complete them in about half the time, I think, so. We will say we started them, I'd like to get them started before the bad weather hits, so we get the foundations and things in the ground this coming year. So I'd say in the fall, we would, toward the end of the summer, we'd need some money in the bank to start paying.
When can we have let's suppose we're not gonna get a budget approved until June the 30th, and know for sure exactly how all of these pieces come together. Is that too late for you to start your design work then? Or do we have to be at risk on the design work and go ahead and start that now under some assumption that we're going to approve the whole project?
I think we would be wise to go ahead and do the design, so that when we got here, we'd have enough time.
So we could find $100,000 to do the design or whatever it is for the 2 projects together, and from some source, and then it wouldn't be wasted money And it would be available whenever you choose to
Down
use
the
it.
road.
If we were not to approve
We
the
do
whole
with
thing,
Eagle.
Yeah.
Like we did it with Eagle.
Was it Eagleville that we did that with
Yeah, we did the
anyway?
design and said we would have
We're
that on the
waiting.
shelf even if we didn't get funding immediately.
And that's why I was asking was, you know, I just referenced that in our last commission meeting was we made a decision to make sure that the SROs, we were going to have budget money and not just jump and vote to do that and then say, okay, now we got to figure out how to do it. I just want to make sure we've got the money, regardless of project. It has nothing to do with whether it's a school system or public safety or any sector of our government. I mean, everybody always needs something. And that's not an indictment on anyone in this room. That's not an indictment on any leader. I just don't want to be voting on something that we can't afford, for one. And two, and I mentioned this several months ago, and I know we're not doing this, I'm actually appreciative that Dr. Odom and his team brought forward a 2-year deal. When we came on this commission, we actually had to fund something that had already been voted on before we had even taken office and forced immediately to fund something we weren't even aware of. And again, that's not on anyone necessarily in this room, and there's no way I would do that. I just don't. I don't think that's fair to someone who might be taking my place in 2014 or down the road. But that's why I wanted to give some answers on at least this, since this is even before our term comes up. There would need to be a decision that would be made, and I appreciate you bringing that forward and not an entire 5-year plan, because you know I'm still torn, to be honest. I've shared that with several board members that I don't run. You know, certain positions that I stand firm on principle, and one of them is raising taxes. And is that being principled or ideological or what have you? I don't know. But that's just who I am, and I don't want to vote on something only to turn around, like I said last month, and say, well, no, I'm not going to vote for a tax increase because I just don't do that. You know, it's not fair to you with the expectation that I would vote for this and then say, well, I'm not going to fund it, though. So that's not fair to you. But I appreciate you presenting that, Ms. Nolan, for me, and certainly think the committee was benefited by that too, so thank you.
One thing that I think of here is Smyrna and Blackburn are both additions. You don't have, what really beats us over the head is the operational costs. You build a new school, you've got to open it. But with an addition, you don't have tremendous operational costs. You've got a few extra teachers, a few extra staff, but it's kind of, you can consume that.
Yeah, it's not near the
staffing. We can pay the 20-year note, but the operation cost is what hits the taxpayers on the tax rate the worst. So that's not going to be much of an issue with these projects.
Continuing the conversation on Smyrna Primary, any other questions for? We've got the folks right here now, the principal, Ms. Nolan, the mayor, and 3 folks representing the school board that know exactly what they're talking about. So this would be a good time to ask any questions.
If I can take the liberty, Mr. Chairman, I want to thank your staff for the way that I know you were under the weather, and they did a phenomenal job giving us information and enough background to be able to make an educated decision. So please make sure that the committee expresses a thank you and a heartfelt gratitude for the way they handled that. They were represented the best over there for sure. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Do we want to handle each one of these separately, or go ahead and talk about Blackman Middle and put
I
them
think
together?
I would prefer separate, yes, sir. But the committee this is not my committee. This is our committee. So if you want to continue the conversation, or let's go ahead and vote on Smyrna Primary, if that's the will of the committee. And if you have no further questions, I entertain a motion.
Well, it's definitely the will of this commissioner that we approve this. I'd like to make a motion, we approve the addition to Smyrna Primary on schedule and fully funded.
You've heard the motion. Do I have a second? Commissioner Soriano has seconded the motion. Discussion from anyone?
The question was just raised by the mayor a minute ago about the design versus the whole project. What are we voting on, or the whole project, or doing the design work? And
My motion's for the whole project.
okay.
I kind of support the project, but I don't see a problem with doing the design. No offense, but I think we can move it right along with funding the design at this point in time, and then bite that elephant eat that elephant one bite at a time, you know, and so I don't know.
That's the way I feel too, and I appreciate the mayor bringing that up because I think we'll have a better grasp, 2 or 3 months down the road of exactly where we are financially. I just, again, I hate to hog the mic, but I just, in good conscience, can't vote on it not knowing if the money's going to be there right now or not. I know we can borrow it, and I understand that we can get it if we want, but that's just me. I'll be quiet.
Mayor?
I mean, I think both of those points are well taken. I mean, we think that we can do this whole project. And like some of you have already said and what Lisa's already shown you, we're not so much concerned about the debt service ability to fund this additional money. We're more concerned about the whole budget, the operational pieces of all of our budget, including the school board's budget and county general, et cetera. That's the thing we're concerned about, whether we're having the ability to meet those needs without a property tax increase. So that's really when the heavy discussion is going to have to take place as we move a little further down that road.
I too support this project, and things happen down at Smyrna. You mentioned the 50th anniversary. I was in Smyrna High School in 1963 when this school was built, and the Lady Bulldogs pulled off a state championship by beating Loretta on the last second shot by a lady named Barrett, and I remember that being 1963 as well, and this school opening up. It's a long, long time ago. Hard to believe that was 50 years ago. I support this project, I really do. But I still think we ought to take it maybe one step at a time, and even if it were to require, along with all the other things, a tax increase, then we could decide which one of these projects countywide would be more urgent. I would move to amend the motion to at this time fund the design of the project with the intention of hopefully funding the entire project.
Ms. Cook seconded Commissioner Phillips' motion to amend the project for the design phase only. Is that correct, Commissioner Phillips? Comments on the amendment?
The only comment I'll make is that you only get in life what you ask for. So I wanted to ask for the whole thing, but I'm in agreement with the amendment. That's fine.
I think we're all trying to get to the same place.
I sense that you all are ready to vote on the amendment, and would that be correct?
That's correct.
Okay, call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Cook?
Aye.
Commissioner Will Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Aye.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Turner?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Okay, so design phase is underway.
We got to vote on the motion that's amended, do we not?
Yes, I think we do. I think that's probably a very good idea. Any other discussion on that? Clearly, I didn't want any, which is not really true, by the way. But is okay. Call the roll again, please. Motion as amended.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Cook?
Aye.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Jordan, sorry.
Whichever.
One of you.
Can you vote twice?
I said yes.
Okay. Commissioner Phillips?
Aye.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Turner?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Okay, let's turn our attention to Blackman addition, Blackman Middle School addition. Mr. Clardy, Mr. Odom, whoever would like to address this, keeping in mind that somebody just tuned in that we have paperwork on all of this for some time now, and discussed a month ago, and are ready to take some sort of action, or none, I guess, tonight.
This is a capacity issue for us, simply the numbers of students. Of course, 6th, 7th, and 8th, 7th, and 8th are all hours, for sure. And as you can see that we have 6 portables at Blackman Middle now. They grew by 79 students this year. It's about 3 classrooms, basically. And when you say about 3, but where do you find 3 more dishes? You still have 149 portables, and shifting the double wide around's about 22,500 maybe, or something like that. We talked about that today. So when we spend those monies shifting portables around, that's lost money, to be honest with you, even though you're not buying. If you buy it, you know, you're looking at 65 or so. But we know, I mean, it's not going to change. It's inevitable. The numbers are there to show that. So our recommendation was to go ahead and do the Blackman Middle Annex, which will be primarily for 6th grade. Mr. Carter's going to share some of the plans with you. Basically, we'll come out to the, beside the school, there'll be an addition added to the cafeteria. We're not having to add a lot of core to this building. That reduces the cost again too. 6th grade could eat there. Basically, we'll put a science labs, 2-story classroom space there. Also, there is a playroom, not seating and things for other athletic events, but a playroom to hold that. Now, again, that starts bringing your middle school up to 1,300 to 1,400. I'm not excited about that. You know, I'll tell you that, but on the front end. But by being able to divide those up, that allows us basically to treat them somewhat separately. You can put an administrator and some things over there. They'll not interact a lot unless they need to go to the other building specifically for maybe a library or, you know, we could even put a music area in there. So that's, we're trying to deal with the fact of a large number of students. In our middle schools, we do mini schools. We've done that for a number of years, you know, where we have 1,000 students, yet we're able to somewhat separate each grade in the mini school concept and still give that commonality of a community of students that grade and manage it much better. But again, it's the most economical way to increase our capacity at this time. I mean, if we're interested in building an entire middle school, somewhere in our 5-year plan that could be done. But again, I think if we do this now, you're not many years off. Again, we're still having to have another middle school. You can see what I'm talking about. If you really want to see that again, if you look at the new middle school, which is line 12, that's how many you got your middle schools now. We typically say 850 to 1,000. I mean, that's this year's numbers right now. So even with this, we know you can see the numbers enrolled now. And you want to show them kind of what the plans might be? We had the architect kind of give us some renderings of what might be.
I believe you have a booklet that you received the last meeting, but as Mr. Odom referred to, there's a new 6th grade serving and dining edition. And then the new 6th grade wing, which is a 2-story wing, will have 21 classrooms, 4 science labs, mini administration and guidance suite, and then the playroom or an auxiliary gym. And that's it. And we will need to, you know, we need to start the design now as the other project. And it's a little bit larger project than Smyrna Primary, so we need to try to get it started as soon as possible and try to get some good weather on at the end of this year to get everything in the ground and get up out of the ground before we go into the bad weather.
Just kind of go back to the history a little bit. Blackman Middle is designed for kind of a core of how many students?
About 850 to 1,000. We do 1,000.
And we're 1,100 at this particular point in time. Where that building is going, the new building, what is there right now? Just parking or portables or?
Grass. Much of it is right to that
just on the other side of the main circle that goes around the school. So that circle would be extended to the other side. There's a large field in there, and then beyond the field is a drainage ditch, and then the ball fields are there. And then that is on, you have Fortress Drive up there. Mm-hmm. So it would be to the east of the school.
Just before you get to that wrestling building, or the middle building, it's between that and the existing building.
And this would take, well, we're at 1,100 and we're expecting continued growth. This would take us up to, and take care of?
Probably 1,500. Sixth grade is a 1 to 25 ratio. Seventh and eighth is 1 to 30. So certainly for every 5 classrooms, that ratio itself adds another room.
That is a huge.
It is.
Huge.
Wilson County's doing some of that. That's why you have to divide it.
I was just going to ask you, do you know of another middle school?
You know,
in
my
the state that
grandson's
would
in
be
one
that
over
big?
at West Wilson and
Wow.
Wilson County.
Wow. It's just big.
It
really
is big. It's not my desire. I mean, again, again, I say at this time, we could use the middle school. I don't know that we could fill it up totally right now. That what you could do, you could shift if you wanted to move one of those up there. But I mean, that's a whole another funding issue. And initially, that's what we looked at. But trying to build some time and capacity. This is kind of where we are. I mean, we use our design basically over and over again. So
it's hard to balance the growth. School's getting too big and not big enough school. Number 10 on the line 10 is the Siegel High addition. Siegel High's a good sized high school already.
It is.
They have the same exact worries about, we're going to be 2,200 or 300 there with the addition or something.
It
When and if we do the addition, I mean, it's an awful big school.
It is big.
Well,
And
the
I
largest
just-
high school in the state of Tennessee is Blackman High School. So
I can
we're
remember
there.
us talking about a few years ago in the building program. I don't know how long ago it's been. At my age, everything is a few years ago. But I remember a few years ago us talking about let's try to stay with the middle schools at 800 and those kinds of
agree.
things. And now we're going to double that.
I agree.
And I hate to ask that question, but are we spending wise money instead of building another school someplace? To me, for the people in Blackman, we probably are spending that money and keeping those kids
Where they are.
where they are. Yeah, but you're
The
talking.
density there that's built up around Blackman, which is our issue with the elementary in the middle and the high school, is where you've got high density development in such close proximity to the school that, again, what you're doing is almost just dealing with that density. And the next one would have to be, I think, in that area, maybe more realistically west or some area where the area is still growing a little bit more.
Well, you've already got parents grumbling about having their kids bused away over
Yes.
to Brown's Chapel.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
that's besides the portables, that's your only other solution is to bus them somewhere else. And right
Well,
now, like you said,
where
with
you gonna
these-
bus
that's what I said, with these
them?
middle school numbers.
That wasn't an option for
Yeah,
us,
there's nowhere to send them.
particularly.
Yeah.
I mean, we look even at Rockvale in that, when you look at Rockvale Middle School, again, it grew by 47 this year, so that's 2 classroom and it's at 952, so, I mean, do you bus people there when their growth in next year probably puts them at 1,000?
Bring them right back. You're dealing with people's lives.
You are.
I think the nature, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think the nature of the development and the housing that's
It
around
is.
there is what's put you in this situation. We don't really have a choice.
Do we have the luxury of doing the design on Blackman Middle at this time? Or will this is a longer construction project than the Smyrna primary? I mean, would that suffice tonight to just pass the design? Or we're gonna be right back up there next month saying, we really gotta get going on this, we've gotta.
Well, it would buy us maybe 10 to 12 weeks, you know.
We're gonna
maybe
need an answer on this before the budget is set.
We would to get it
actuality.
open by next year, otherwise we're gonna have to throw away a pile of money getting portables out there.
I kinda like the last one, we could just design it, but I think we're gonna have to bite the bullet on this one way or the other.
My comment here might be slightly inappropriate because it doesn't apply to the next budget year. But I can see considerable support from myself for this project. But Mr. Odom, I've made this request to you before, and I really think that in the next budget year, if this is approved and it's built, that another administrator, I know they're already stretched to the limit. Most of them are assistant principals and principals. An administrator that would be, not Mr. Shelton move one down there.
I agree with you.
I would request that he have another one. And maybe some consideration should be given to SRO help as well. It has one SRO, I believe, and we're going to add considerable number of youngsters to his school and to Blackman Middle, and I'm not going to forget that next year.
We actually use the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools formula for staffing for assistant principals and all. So we're still, we maintain that. We're accredited as a district, so we do maintain that ratio. So if you add that, it's an automatic thing that if you're going to maintain that, you'll have to add.
Thank you.
What is the capacity, would you say? This is going to be a 6th grade addition, right? So how many students would you put over there in that new addition?
You've got 21 rooms. You literally have to, I mean, you're probably going to have some for a little bit of special education, some other things that you have to do. But 18, you're 400 to 500 range, would you say? And that gets rid of some of your portables that you've got now.
Yes.
You know, to try to take some of those away. You know, I honestly would like to see them never to get over 14 on this. You know.
You're going to run that. You're going to run that little. So it's going to have its own identity, more or less, is it not? So
I think that's what we.
I think
that's what we need to do. I think that's what we're thinking. Very much your mini school concept. Only this time you kind of do it for the whole grade.
Even though it's 1,400 or 1,500, those 400 or 500 are sort of independent.
They interact with each other.
Committee, let's take a minute or two and see if Principal Shelton wants to make any comments here. We heard from Dr. Vogel. I think it's only fair that we hear from Mr. Shelton.
Well, I would just say, and thank you for the opportunity, I would just say that I never really planned to lead a middle school of 1,400 students, you know, but at the same time, nor did I plan to lead a middle school of any size where I don't feel I can adequately keep all of those children and staff members safe. So that is a major concern for me. Right now, every time we're under a severe thunderstorm warning, we bring all the kids in from the portables. Those kids and teachers come into the building. And I've simply run out of room. I don't have adequate space to put them where they can continue to teach and learn. And so I don't feel safe keeping them out there in that environment. If we're under a tornado warning, I don't have room to put them. And we continue to grow, and that terrifies me. I'm all about teaching and learning, but my main goal as a principal is to keep those kids safe. So I understand it's a large school, but Mr. Burt here, he is very interested in taking over that 6th grade academy, and I can guarantee you they would be in capable hands out there under his direction. And we would reconfigure the rest of the building to accommodate the existing 7th and 8th grade mini schools, and it would be a fabulous thing.
Would this eliminate all the portables? I thought I heard you say a minute ago you've moved some of the portables.
It should eliminate all the portables with this addition. Should eliminate at that school.
Yes. Yeah.
Mr. Sheridan, you have a question?
Well, like I said a while ago, I really like the first Smyrna primary, just approving the design phase, but I don't think we have that luxury on this one. I think we're going to have a decision. We can approve the design tonight and be back up here in next month or the month after under the gun. I think it's going to have to be decided before the budget is set. So with that, I'll make a motion that we fund this project and move it forward to the budget committee, or whatever the appropriate term is.
Commissioner Jordan's made a motion. We need a second.
Second.
Second from Commissioner Allen. Comments or further questions? Thank you for your comments, Mr. Shelton.
And as I said earlier, with interest rates like they are, I don't think there's a better time to be borrowing money for brick and mortar. Construction prices are still somewhat low. They haven't started increasing yet. Interest rates are at historic lows, so there may not be a better time at all to be building a building than right now.
One reason that I am for this project, other than the obvious ones, is that it's needed. I think is, we have, over the years, certainly since, in my memory, which is a little over 6 years now, we have repeatedly asked the school board, and sometimes with considerable success, and maybe sometimes not, that we presented some options on building. And not necessarily, although I guess we were really thinking money, and that's what we're in the business of doing. We're looking at a way to accomplish great things with as little amount of money as possible. This is such an option. I think it is. I think it's sound. I just thought I'd make that comment. If there are no further questions, we have a proper motion and a second, do we not? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Cook?
Aye.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Aye.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Turner?
No.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. No amendments this time for me to forget anything. Okay, good. That's today.
Don't worry, Mr. Chairman, I'll be bringing several in the next few months.
We can look for you next month. Is that correct? If we have any other school board business or questions for these gentlemen, or if you all have any further
I'd like to
comments?
make a comment.
Yes, sir.
In your address to us, something like a year ago, you talked about what's the possibility of doing some things for students to earn credits without building buildings. The school board tonight saw a plan to do online courses this summer and possibly next year to start. That will not cost you brick and mortar monies. We'll see how that goes. We're going to begin piloting that this summer and hope to move into it for the next year.
Is that just for your high school?
It's for high school, yes. The deal with the elementary school, that's part of what's going on in the legislature now. That's really a tough thing to go that direction at this point.
Are there any other school systems across the county that have successfully piloted
state?
online?
No.
Or in the state, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Tennessee ran something called E410, which was some money, special federal monies. They gave most of it to Hamilton County, did some offline. That's gone away. Metro Nashville is doing some now, where that you can do that. They really have a very good program down there. Several country music stars and people that travel all the time that have found this very attractive for their students.
Yes.
They still have to come in and take their test.
Sure.
They still have to take the state's EOC test. We have teachers that teach it. We're using some software doing that, but about $125 for the course or so. If they go into the private world, they're going to be $600 to $800 to try to
Paying
do
for a
that.
college hour.
So, I mean, we're gonna see how this goes.
That's what it is, summer school.
We're gonna do it for summer school. I mean, lots of students need to catch up, do that sort of thing, or we're actually seeing early graduates too.
So you quoted the expense, though. Is that paid for by the family, or is that the expense to the school system?
But since it's extra, will basically be a family expense.
Okay.
Now, we offer a summer school, which this year, if you go, if you are free reduced, we do not charge you for tuition for that. If you want to be on site,
Okay.
just provide some flexibility with the content, but we'll have to see how that goes.
That's good. I'm glad. Appreciate you looking out for taxpayer dollars and for other areas. I mean, some students that might benefit them, and you wouldn't see it until we implement it. How much they improve learning. That's good.
There's one county that's actually requiring, Putnam County is requiring one online course for students to graduate there, and I'm not sure which year students will have to have that. You have to realize if you're in business and industry now and you will be receiving additional training in your job, it's very likely to be online. So there's nothing in the world really wrong with students learning how, maybe with us having teachers and people there to help direct them. I think we're preparing them for their future. You know, I really think that's what
That's the industry I'm in, is online healthcare education, and it's not going away. You either adapt to it or you die. Well, not quite that severe, but you adapt to it or you
rough business. You get it.
Thanks for your suggestion.
I think you give me too much credit, but I am delighted that you all are looking at that. I want to take a moment and recognize Mr. Holliday from the Rutherford County School Board, who joined us for almost all of this conversation and voting tonight, and appreciate him being with us. Are there other questions from anyone? And that gets us sliding right into new business. Is there any? And seeing none, these two requests, of course, will go directly to the Budget Committee, the design fees for Smyrna Primary and the construction of a Blackman Annex next month. And I don't know what date that is, but it's the first Thursday, I guess, in March, right?
When is that meeting, Will?
Ms. Ely,
7th.
of March. Okay, if there's no new business, last call. Thank you so much for your participation in the discussion. We are adjourned.